Today I'm going to show you how I made this little bag. It is an unlined little pouch, very easy to make, crossbody, and it's got like a little shoulder protector at the top just for comfort when it's going across your body, as it goes across your body. With this technique, you can also make something similar to this. There you go. It's a little pouch bag, very much like this, minus the straps. See the strap? This one's got a little more depth to it, and I put a pocket on the inside. But yeah, it's about the same technique as the other bag. The only difference is I did pinch the bottom, which gives depth to the bag on both sides, and then it'll stand up maybe. And you can put more stuff into it. I started out by going to an auction. And at that auction I found these. It's a sample book of different leathers, and so I decided to of course buy it, and I got quite a few actually. And from these samples I am making these bags. Of course, if you don't have a sample pack, which they are not easy to come by, you can just use regular leather. You can recycle a jacket like I did in my last video. I do that a lot actually. But you can also use these samples for pockets on different bags. I made, let's see, this bag here. You can see that. And that right there is another sample that I got. Makes a nice little pocket there. It's just a patch pocket I put on the front. I will probably have a video on how to make this bag later. But for now, we're going to do this easy one. That one is going to be a bit harder to do. I'm going to take this green one, I think, here, and how about this one? This burgundy one. Now, you have to recognize, and I found out the hard way with this bag, that not all leathers are created equal. So this yellow one here on the top and the bottom, the back is blue, the bluish black. The yellow one is a softer, more pliable leather than this back one here. So I'm trying to get something that's a little more the same feel to it. Actually, this one's pretty stiff, but it's easier to work with the stiffer leathers than it is to work with these softer leathers, because the softer ones tend to stretch. And even though I did kind of support the sides with glue when I sewed it, it still was kind of difficult to work with, even on the inside with the pocket. So this is pretty firm. Let me get it off here. So one of them is going to be the flap. They fold over like this, and the other one will be in here like that. Get the flap over, and look, we're almost done. Seriously, hey, not so difficult at all. As you saw, I rounded up the front of this, gave it a nice little shape there, and you know what, honestly, it looks pretty good with it being not rounded as well. Maybe I will leave it like that and possibly put 2 snaps here instead of 1. When you're dealing also with this, you have to worry about the holes that come with it. That's what this was here. It was the holes that were in it that they used to hold onto the holder there. But because I did that, I ended up making this bag a little bit smaller, and my cell phone does not fit into it with its case on, and I have an iPhone 6, and it does not fit into it, the 6 Plus that is. So if I think I'll just take off this little edge. When you're dealing with recycled materials, you have to be able to be flexible with it, because not everything, of course, is symmetrical or even. You have to figure it out as you go. So I'm going to trim this up. Right here, we'll keep the rounded parts. That looks good. Sometimes I'm not able to do that, and I do have to trim it down. And it's lining up pretty good. So I'll just see where I can get the most out of it. What I'm going to do is match it up like this. And you see it's not the same width here and here. Alright, I'm going to trim it up on either side and turn it over, because the suede side will help it stay in place a little bit better than the leather side. It'll stick better and won't slide around as I'm trying to trim it down. Now, when you trim it down, you're going to end up taking off the rounded parts here. It's not going to look as rounded, so I might have to round up the top edges. I don't know if you noticed, but I don't actually have a pattern, you know, with this. I don't make a pattern usually. I just kind of work with what I have with me and let it determine what it wants to be, basically, based on its size and shape. So every one comes out to be a little bit different sometimes. It's hard cutting when you're sitting down. You don't get as much pressure behind it, and it makes it a little more difficult to cut all the way through. So usually I stand and put some good pressure behind it when I'm cutting. There. So that's good. That's going to be the bag. Fold it over, just like that. And this is going to be in here, like this. This is a pattern that I made for a different bag, and it already has its corners nicely rounded. So I'm going to use the pattern on this one. Line up the edges, trace it out. Here we go. So I'll cut those out. And this pair of scissors here is the pair that I use for paper and anything else. It's all notched up and ugly on the inside. It doesn't really cut smoothly. And then I have a pair of scissors specifically for cutting leather. I got them from Tandy Leather, and I waited till they had a sale because I always like to be economical as much as possible. And I got these leather scissors. Trust me, it works so much better. You can, of course, use other scissors if you have, or if you have a fresh pair of scissors. But these are specifically made to cut leather, and they do a really fine job with it. Because even though it's off by just a little bit, I want to maximize the amount that I use. So I'm going to turn it this way and flip it over. So it will match exactly. Now this is where this stamp was for these samples, you know, to say what kind it is. Honestly, it's going to be on the inside of it, and I don't really worry too much about it being there. So, all right, I'm going to trim this down. Now I have to determine how deep I want it to be. So with this one, I gave a little joggy notch here, and you don't have to, you can just cut it straight across. I don't know if you can see that there, right there. You can just cut it straight across, but I don't know, I think it just looks better if it has that there. So I think I'm going to do the same for this bag. It's either that or do as I did with this one, and I folded it over and I sewed the top. Just something to give it just a little bit more finished kind of feel to it as compared to it just being cut and done. And we're going to cut it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do 6 1/4. Measure it up and see how it looks. There. Now to do the little cutout, what I decided to do, on the 6-inch line, so we have a 1/4 inch standing over or left over, I'm gonna make a line with my pen, and then about 1 inch in, I'll mark it up. And because everything looks better when it's softly curved as compared to hard, we're just gonna gently round it in on one side. And I'm going to cut that out. So I'm going to take the piece that I used and flip it over. And because it is very tiny, it's going to be hard to do, but I'm going to try to trace it out to be my guide. There. Little cutout. Flip it down. I need to make a decision at this time whether we're going to sew along this or not. And I think, why not? I'll sew along it and give it a little bit of definition and a little bit of more interest. And then we'll just glue it down and sew all the way around here, and throw my straps in the middle of that before I sew, and we'll be done for the most part. Okay. My holes are pretty close to the edge here, so when I fold it over, it's going to end up being off center. You can see that it's off center. I decided, you can see that, to use this side piece that I cut off here. It'll work out better, I think, this way. Also, I started, as you can see on this end here, I rounded it up a bit, and once I figure out the length of it, I will just flip it over and round up the other end. To round it, all I did was fold it in half this way, and take my scissors and cut off the end from the bottom up to the top and cut it off. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7.5 inches. I'll just flip this over like this. Alright, we're gonna sew around the top edge, give it a little bit of interest. Do a back stitch. Now going around these curves, of course, is not easy. So I try to take my time, at least until I get to where I need to be. Rotate. Alright, so that's it, sewn along the top edge. Okay, so I have this sewn here, and I have decided that I am going to use this strap that I had from a different project, and I'm just going to cut it in half this way so to make it into two pieces lengthwise, and then I will use that as my straps for this bag. So we're going to use the ruler. Now I have two pieces. And we'll sandwich that in between there. So this will be at the top, and then we'll attach it to the bag. Now I'm going to use this tool here, which is an edge groover, I think it's called. I'm not exactly sure. But what it does is it takes off of the sharp corner since I cut it. This edge here is a sharp edge, and the other side is rounded or already cut off. So I want them to be the same. So I am going to take off this edge. You just slide it along. This works well with firmer leathers. It really doesn't work with softer leathers. So I've tried and didn't do such a good job with that. So this piece of leather is pretty thick. It's actually very, very thick. But I like it like that for a handle. I think it does a good job. Alright, I decided that I'm going to cut out the little tabs on the bottom of the shoulder protector. It'll be easier. And I also did a smaller change, and I'm not going to put the holes in it. I'm just going to sit this down and put this over top, and then we will put some I'll put some rapid rivets in here to hold it in place as well, to make sure it doesn't come apart. Just because this is wider than the last one that I used for the last bag, and it would just be a pretty big hole that I would have to make, and I really didn't want to do that. So I'm just going to cut this out. Now I have this, which is it's a double-sided tape. So it's sticky on this side, and this is paper backing, and you just peel it off once you have it applied, and then you can stick it to wherever you want. So I'll put that there like that. So I bent it over, which will give me an edge, and I'll peel off the back and place it. This is just see if I can get this off. There we go. There. I have glue here. This is water-based contact cement glue that I use. This one's already open. Same thing. So we're going to use this one. And I will use a paintbrush. I have disposable paintbrushes that I use just so I can paint it on. Okay, so it's spread out on both of them. And what you do is you let it dry for a little bit so that it is no longer white. It is still drying a little bit here. And it becomes tacky, like that. Very tacky, as you see. And once you put the two together, that's it. It will stay. It will stay very well. Is the handle. I will put some rivets in it to give it a little bit of interest, as well as to ensure that it definitely won't be coming apart. So I have some, yeah, I like that color. These are double cap rivets. I got them from Tandy Leather, and this one is about a ½ inch, a little less than that. And that will determine how many and the placement I want them. And I do that by using the tops, and I put them on to see what I like. And if I like it and how it's placed, then all I'll do is just press it down, and which will leave an indentation. And then I will take my hole punch that I use for my rivets and punch the holes. Just press it down. Right here, this is what I use. It is you press it and it screws it down. I don't know if this is specifically made for leather. It could be like a paper punch. I've seen Martha Stewart had something out for people who do the paper crafting stuff. So it could be something like that. I don't actually remember where I got it from, but it works very well for these rivets and the size that I need for it to cut out. So what I will do is I'll put this here, and we'll take these off, and I'll put it right over the indentation, and you just press down. It's like a Yankee screwdriver, if you know what one of those are. keep pressing until you get all the way through. Almost. A little bit more. Or a lot of it more. And there. And you place your cap over top. And that's one. This is my Tandy leather punch that I use, and it already has the rivet setter dies in there. So, because I use it a lot, I ended up buying one when they had the sale. And so you just sit it down in it and push. And that's it. All set. And there it is. Now, I'm going to determine the length that I have here. Just fold it in half, bring it down, see how they're matching up. And then trim it off. I might end up trimming it again later on down the line, because now it is time to attach the front to the back and to sew all the way around here. Now, the way I did the last bag was I tucked it in on the sides, and when I sewed it down, and it would be like this. Which isn't bad. Let me just try it on, see where it falls. It looks like it is too long, so needs to have maybe about 6 inches removed on either end. And because of the thickness, I think I actually will attach it to the back like that. What I'm going to do is put a hole here, slide it in, and it will come out the back. Little piece of chalk that I have here. Determine how wide it is. I don't know if you can see that. And then I'm going to cut between the two. So it sits about there, about here, so you really can't see where that is. And I want this to go in this way. So it'll be on the inside. And then I will rivet it into place. It'll be like that. So we're going to put this on, and I'm going to use this tape, which is just like the other tape that I have, but it's just thinner, and double-sided sticky tape. And we're going to put the tape around all the edges. Just rip that off. And press it down nice and good. Alright, so once you have it into position, where you want it to be, pick up a corner and I stick it into position. Alright, now we're going to take it to the sewing machine. I do have a servo motor for this machine, which makes it a little bit easier, but I saw someone else on YouTube, Arthur Porter, who does sewing with leather as well, and he does a fantastic job with it. And on his machine, he had something that he called a reducer. I don't have that, but I think I would actually like to have that, because even though you think that you're starting out slowly, you end up going fast at times, and I'm not really one who will hand crank the flywheel around like Arthur did in the beginning of his videos before he got the reducer. He does a really fantastic job. It's Mr. Arthur Porter. He's from Dallas, Texas, and I love the stuff that he does. I have learned a lot from him, so if you would like to check it out to see any other sewing videos about leather, that is definitely a place to go. And there it is. Okay. So I have the handle and I have the bag. And I'm going to go in through the back of the bag, tuck it in. And what I'm going to do is flip it up like this, and I'm going to measure 2 inches. And I can tuck it in up until the edge of the tape. So we're going to flip it back and tuck it down. There. Set that in. That sits in there like that. And then you press it down. I love this punch. I have done snaps before by hand, and let me tell you, it does not come out pretty. At least not when I do it. So we need 2 of those. These guys. And 2 of these. Positioning. I'm going to give myself some space. You don't want it to be tight, butted up against it. Just kind of give yourself a little bit of room, because as you put stuff in it, you're going to need more space for the flap to tuck over all the stuff. And punch the hole. And the other one. Set it over and press down. And voila, she's done. That's it. Your nice crossbody bag. And you got yourself a soft strap at the top with nice decorated rivets and rivets on the back that kind of match up nicely. And with our snaps, Not bad at all.